James West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
It's taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Hello, friends and neighbors. A big Tuesday morning to you. How about it? It's Tuesday, July 21. We are glad to see you today on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, Talker TV, with lots to talk about. We'll tell you what's going on. You tell us what it all means to you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS and join the conversation. A big grand opening on Monday. Very, very exciting. The mojitos were flowing at 11 o'clock yesterday morning here in Washington, D.C. for the opening of the Cuban embassy, and a big celebration also at the same time down in Havana for the opening of the American embassy. A big, big, huge symbolic step in improving relations between the United States and Cuba 50 years after the embargo was imposed. Meanwhile, a big shockaroo for the Republican Party, waking up this morning to find out that Donald Trump not only is the front-runner in the 2016 presidential race among Republicans, he has a double-digit lead over Scott Walker and Jeb Bush. Donald Trump at 24, Scott Walker at 13, Jeb Bush at 12. The others are way, 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 way down. Meanwhile, the Des Moines Register is out with an editorial today urging Donald Trump to drop out of the race, which he will not do, at least not for a while. Big support yesterday for the Iran nuclear deal in Brussels. The European ministers voted unanimously to support the deal. And in New York City, the United Nations Security Council met and unanimously, all 15 nations unanimously supported the Iran nuclear deal. Meanwhile, Congress is so busy, they say, I don't know, maybe they'll get around to it, maybe in August or even later. Lots to talk about today. Again, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. We're right here for you, as we are every day. The Bill Press Show. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel aware of the proper protection of women. This includes all personnel identified as staff, students, role players, VIPs, and support staff. Face, eyes, throat, and chronic protection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your mask prior to use to ensure there are no cracks and the mask is in safe working condition.
Should I put the water in there now? Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent? Yeah.
Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Dean's yelling at me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy?
Yes, we are exfilling.
It's actually around 92, 94, there was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends. I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Exactly. Okay. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Donald Trump, not only is he number one among Republicans running for president, he has a double-digit lead in the latest poll. Hey, what do you say, everybody? It is a big Tuesday, July 21. Here we go. Off to the races here on the Bill Press Show. This beautiful Tuesday morning. Well, it's beautiful if you like it. If you like it hot and humid and sultry this early in the morning, that's the way it is, at least here in Washington, D.C. And that's where we're starting out. We're there with you in every corner of this great land. We happen to be ourselves on Capitol Hill in our studio just down the street from the United States Capitol building, where the United States Congress is still deciding, when are we going to get around to talking about this Iran nuclear deal? Yeah, Republicans were pissing and moaning yesterday because the European ministers acted to endorse the Iranian deal. The United Nations Security Council acted to endorse the Iranian deal. And Republicans are saying, in Congress, are saying, how dare they move ahead of us? Yeah, you know what? A snail moves ahead of them. If you hang around waiting for Congress to act, man, you're never going to get anything done. At any rate, such as the business is here in Washington, D.C., at this end of Pennsylvania Avenue, or down at the White House, we cover it both. We're there every day and bringing the news to you and looking forward to hearing from you as to what it all means. You know how to do it. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Here with you on your local progressive talk radio station. And for those of you watching on Free Speech TV this morning, yes, that's true. Yes, what you see over my shoulder, yes, indeed, it is the Cuban flag. God bless Cuba, I guess, right? God bless America, God bless Cuba, in honor of the opening yesterday here in Washington, D.C., of the Cuban embassy, first time in over 50 years, and the American embassy opened in Havana at the same time. Peter is going to tweet out a picture of it, those of you who follow us on Twitter. And we're very excited because a little bit later in the program, Peter Kornbluh from The Nation magazine, who was there at the opening of the embassy in Washington yesterday, will be here to tell us all about it. I was with Peter in Cuba in May, and we drank a lot of mojitos then. Maybe we'll have one this morning.
Are you guys gonna sing the Cuban national anthem later at 8:30 when he comes in?
He may. I don't.
We have the flag. We're all ready for it.
Right. Peter Ogburn and Annalisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Yes, indeed. With Jamie Benson here on the phones, and no, that's right. Cyprian still in Paris. Okay, yeah. But Monty Kanzler is on the job. I was a videographer. I was just thinking, in my iPhone right here, I have a picture of Peter Kornbluh making mojitos.
Is that right?
We took a class on how to make mojitos.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. How can I? If I send that to you?
Yeah, send it to me.
Then you could tweet it out,
sure.
maybe. All right,
yeah,
we'll do that.
Or you could tweet it out, sure.
Or I could tweet it out, I guess. Yeah. All right, good. I'll do that. All right. Well, lots going on here. Yes,
at
indeed.
BP Show is where you can follow us on Twitter.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, well, Matt Fanning, by the way, back in Australia now. Did not take the shark with him. He is the, number one, tied for number one champion world surfer. We talked yesterday about the fact that he was there in the waiting for his wave when a shark interrupted the competition, shall we say. This guy is one cool dude, as he talks about it.
I turned around and was on my back, and I was just waiting for it. You know, I had my fist cocked and ready to see what was going to go, and yeah, luckily it didn't come.
I think I'd be a little more freaked out.
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah.
Tad,
I turned around and thought, oh my God, it's a shark!
Get me out of here!
Yeah. I just calmly waited there.
I just calmly waited there with
my fist cocked, ready to hit him.
To see what might happen. No, okay.
I was ready for a scrap if you wanted one.
It's okay to get your heart beating a little faster than that.
By the way, can we just say, if you fight a shark and win, you automatically become number one.
Yes.
Like, you don't share the title.
Yeah, I think
you
you're
just
right.
win. You become the greatest.
Yeah, the other guy won easy.
Yeah, right. He tied for first. Right. But did he beat a shark? No.
All right. If it's Tuesday, it's got to be Arthur Delaney and Igor Volsky. And indeed, the Gold Dust Twins will be here, as well as reporters from CNN, from NPR, and then the aforementioned Peter Kornbluh from The Nation magazine, fresh from the new Cuban embassy in Washington. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Bill, it's hot out there.
I know it is.
It's hot out there, not just here in Washington, D.C., but all around the world. A report came out yesterday from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, saying that the month of June, not what we're feeling right now, but last month, the month of June was the hottest June on record globally. That is the third month this year to break the monthly record. Now, records began, federal records started keeping them back in 1880. So since then, we have seen the hottest March, the hottest May, and now the hottest June on record globally. That's around the world.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Keep telling me about how climate change isn't real.
Right.
Poor Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth at the British Open yesterday had a real run at winning the Grand Slam. Remember, he won the Masters. He won the US Open. And if he had won the British Open, that would have been the third leg in the Grand Slam. He sunk a 50-foot putt for birdie early on to put him into a share of the lead, but that was not enough. It went into a playoff, which saw Zach Johnson, the American, coming through and winning the British Open. He had previously won the Masters, not this year, but this is his second big major win. Congratulations to Zach Johnson. Again, a big playoff win. So no Grand Slam for Jordan Spieth this year, anyway.
Boy, that British Open, the weather's been the big winner over there.
The weather was nuts, and the fact that it was a Monday morning and we had golf was pretty great. You know, we never get golf during the week unless it's a weird playoff thing.
Yeah,
like this,
right.
So. And we go to the town of Hustle, Virginia. Hustle, Virginia.
Hustle. Never been there.
It's in Essex County. It's about 20 miles from Tappahannock, Virginia, and another 20 miles from Port Royal. Basically, it's in the middle of nowhere. There's a couple there, Randy Silvers and Carolyn Berry. They live on a farm that they restored, and he's gotten up in age, and so he can't really maintain the farm the way that he wants to, so they are going to pass it on to someone else, but they're going to do it in a very non-traditional way. If you want to have this horse farm with a giant, lovely house on it, all you have to do is write an essay. Write an essay telling them how much you want this, and the best essay will win. Now, here's how they figure this will work. They're hoping that they get 5,000 people to apply, and then to apply, you have to put in a little bit of money.
Got it. Okay.
So you have to pay some money up front to enter the contest. But if yours is good enough,
how much?
It's yours. They are saying $200 a piece if you want to enter in. So $200, and you write your thing.
It's like applying for college.
But think about this: if you get 5,000 applicants who pay $200,
that's not much money for that farm.
Yeah, right.
No.
I can write a mean essay. I might be busy later.
All right, yeah. You got a long commute, baby.
Well.
Yeah. Right. All right. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. Hate to do it, but got to start there again today. Question today about Donald Trump is that's where we're starting it today because it's getting serious, folks, and more people are asking this question. Should the media should the media in general even be talking about Donald Trump, or should we just ignore him? Every time a political reporter comes into the studio, every time I see one of my friends at the White House or on the beat, wherever, that question is being debated today, and that's a question people want to talk about. I want to get your take on it. What's the answer? Should the media be talking about Donald Trump? 866-55-PRESS. Let's get the latest. The latest is he hasn't backed down. Well, maybe just a little. We remember how it all got started last Friday out in Iowa, Friday, Saturday, whenever it was, at this family leadership summit where he's talking about he's angry at John McCain because McCain called his people crazies, and Donald Trump is on this rant against McCain. Frank Luntz, who's the moderator, interrupts him and says, wait a minute, you realize now, right, that you're talking about a war hero? Donald Trump says, I don't buy that.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you. Do you agree with that? He's a war hero because he was captured, okay?
Now, notice technically, right? Technically, he says he's a war hero because he was captured, right? So yesterday on the Today Show, he points out, no, I didn't say he wasn't a war hero.
Why did Savannah start off by saying I said that he was not a war hero? I never said that. I said he was a war hero, Matt. Savannah started it off by saying I said that he wasn't a war hero. I didn't say that.
Yeah, we all know what he said, what he meant. He meant that he should not be considered a war hero because he was captured. And by the way, and then he went on to call him a dummy because he came in last in his the Naval Academy class, a loser because he lost to John Kerry in 2004. I went to Barack Obama. What am I saying? Yeah, to Barack Obama in 2008, and he said that he was that he never did anything for vets.
Yeah.
As a United States senator, that Trump says he did more for vets than John McCain did. So McCain didn't. Yeah, he wasn't being nice to McCain at all. So he shouldn't even try to get away with that. But then Trump says, "I'm the one who's the victim. They attacked me too."
When people attack me, I let them have it back. You say physical appearance, it's my hair, but people are constantly attacking my hair. I don't see you coming to my defense. My hair is just fine.
Yeah,
a little sensitive to
the
that
real
topic.
victim here.
But the point of it is, he doesn't stop talking about this stuff, and it is working for him. We mentioned this yesterday. It was the same phenomenon this morning. Peter and I sitting here, we're getting ready for the show. You look up at the monitors, all three networks, all three monitors, Fox, MSNBC, and CNN, not right at this moment, but all morning long, it's been Trump, Trump, Trump. Trump, Trump, Trump,
Yeah.
Trump. And that's the question again. Should the media be talking about Trump? 866-55-PRESS. I got to tell you, as far as I'm concerned, the answer is yes, yes, yes. And I'll tell you why. First of all, he's fun to talk about. But two, look at the latest poll. Washington Post, ABC. This is no fly-by-night, people just sit around and say, let's make some calls and see what we find out. This is one of the best polls in the country. The Washington Post ABC poll out today shows Donald Trump, not only a front runner, he's got a huge lead. He's got 24%. The closest to him is Scott Walker, we're talking nationwide now, with 13%. Jeb Bush is in third place with 12%. Then it's Mike Huckabee at 8% and Marco Rubio at 7%. I mean, Trump clobbering all the rest of them. 24% to 13% his close competitor, a double-digit lead. And in Real Clear Politics, and that's a great site where they take all the polls and they average them out, and then they give you their results. Even in that one, Donald Trump doesn't have that as big a lead, but he's still number one over Jeb Bush, who comes in number two in the average of all the polls. So no matter how you look at it, Donald Trump is leading the field. And that's the answer. How can you not? How can we not, we in the media, say, no, we're going to cover all the rest of them. We'll talk about Bobby Jindal, who's at 1%, right? Or we'll talk about Ted Cruz, who isn't even on the map anymore. Or we'll talk about John Kasich, who's going to jump in today because we like him. But we're not going to talk about Donald Trump because he's a clown. We can't make that decision. Now, and I have to say, our good friends at Huffington Post, we love Ariana's a good friend.
Arthur will be here in about 10 minutes.
Arthur will be here, and he's probably coming up in the elevator right now, right? But Huffington Post said they'll cover him, but only on their entertainment page. Well, that's an editorial decision, but who are they to make that decision? He is news.
Yeah.
He is political news. He has filed his papers. He has declared that he's a candidate. He is number one in the polls.
He's the GOP frontrunner.
He is the GOP frontrunner. He is going to be on stage in the first debate. He is not just on the entertainment. He's entertaining, but he's not just on the entertainment page. So you tell me, should the media be covering Donald Trump? Should we in the media be covering him? I don't think we have any choice. 866, at least for now. And when he drops out, we'll cover that, and then we'll forget about him. 866-55-PRESS. What do you say?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley, Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see. You have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle? Sorry? A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water. We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. And we went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Talking Donald Trump on this Tuesday, July 21. So, again, latest WashPo ABC poll has him at 24 over Scott Walker, so closest at 13. Jeb Bush trailing at 12. Basically, Walker and Bush tied for second. The as the Post points out, that support for Donald Trump, he has jumped sixfold. His support has increased 6 times since May. Right? And all the rest are dropping like rocks, right? John, up in Highbridge, New Jersey. John, what do you think? Should the media be talking about Donald Trump?
Of course the media should be talking about Donald Trump. You know, this is sort of like the left-handed hubris that the right-handed hubris was using when we were talking about the build-up to the war in Iran. They decided, Fox News says it's not worth covering Hans Blix, and we're not going to talk about anyone that says there's no weapons of mass destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And now the Post is saying, oh, we don't have to worry about this Donald Trump. He's not serious. He's the most divisive, scary, threatening person I know. We need to get him on the media so he destroys himself as soon as possible.
And the Republican Party while he's at it. Yeah, thanks, John. Paul in Lucerne, California. Quickly, Paul, what do you say?
Hey, Tom. Hey, Bill. I think it's a responsibility for the press to cover him. It's their job. He is the national. Damn, I'm really messing up. I'm sorry.
That's all right, Paul.
No, you're not. You made your point, though. I think I take your point, Paul. It is it's our responsibility to cover the news. It's big news that Donald Trump is the #1 Republican candidate for president. You can't ignore it. You can't deny it. What about Huffington Post? Arthur will tell us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, that guy Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir. And I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone, and there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we're not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, you got it. At 33 minutes after the hour, here we go, The Bill Press Show. Live from Washington, D.C., our studio on Capitol Hill, this Tuesday, July 21, where we're brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their international president, the one and only Leo Gerard. The United Steelworkers, good men and women of the steelworkers under Leo Gerard, North America's largest industrial union. They represent over 1.2 million active and retired members. You know how it goes here, Washington. It's a small town. You say something just mildly critical about the Huffington Post, the fact that they've decided they're only going to cover Donald Trump on their entertainment page, not their political page. And lo and behold, here's Arthur Delaney from the Huffington Post who jumps in. He heard about this and jumps in to defend his boss.
Yeah, you want to fight?
Yes.
You got a problem?
Hey, Arthur, how are you?
I'm angry.
What? How can you just say you make the decision at Huffington? I know you personally didn't make the decision.
Yeah.
Although maybe you did. He's a joke, so we'll cover him, but only on the entertainment page. Can't make that decision.
That's it. Arthur. We did it just like that. It was a decision. I mean, you described the process perfectly.
You decide who's serious and who's not. Is that it?
Yeah. I mean, someone's got to be the arbiter of the conversation.
How about the voters allowing the voters to be the arbiter? And the voters in the Republican Party today say 24% of them say we want Donald Trump over Scott Walker or Jeb Bush or all the rest.
The voters are having a big say, but I don't know if the voters care which section we file our Trump news to, entertainment versus politics. I filed a Trump story almost immediately after this announcement came out. It didn't make a difference to me what section it was going to. It went to the entertainment section, and it was a story about how Donald Trump is Biff Tannen from Back to the Future Part 2.
That was enough to get Peter to choke.
You remember in Back to the Future Part 2?
I don't remember.
All right, well, let me
just watched this movie, by the way.
Let me just explain what happens. They're in the year 2015.
Okay.
And Marty and Doc, Marty buys a sports almanac thinking he's going to go back in time and have a little fun, gambling, knowing the outcome of sporting events. And Doc's like, no way, Marty, you can't do that. They throw it out, and then old Biff, who had been a bully in 1955 in the first movie, is there, and he gets the almanac out of the trash and steals the DeLorean time machine and gives the almanac to his younger self in 1955. Fast forward to a dystopian 1985.
Why do I want to see this movie?
It's a good movie.
Get
it's
out
sort of
of
a time.
here.
If you would just wait.
You've heard of the Back to the Future movies?
If you would just listen and let me entertain you. So, in dystopian 1985, Biff is rich, and he's got a blonde comb over. He owns a casino on top of a big hotel. And he's a complete jerk.
He's on his third marriage.
He's on his third marriage. He is exactly like Donald Trump. It's an uncanny similarity. And, there's a rumor on IMDb.com that the character at the time was actually based on Trump, which is possible. The movie came out in 1989.
Possible.
I emailed the actor who portrayed Biff. He didn't get back to me. Honestly, I feel bad for him because he's always, he says he's always answering questions about this film.
He's forever Biff.
Yeah. But Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, who are the principals in this movie, were at an event in London over the weekend where they said that they think Biff is the template for Donald Trump, not the other way around.
All right.
Now, somebody pointed out on Twitter, by the way, Jessica says that Donald Trump should make his new campaign slogan, "Make like a tree and get out of here."
Make like a tree and get out of here. It's the character Biff couldn't get a joke right. The character Donald Trump can't take a joke.
Yeah.
Remember at the White House dinner? They're making fun of him, and he just sits there.
Yeah.
Big frown.
Oh, yeah. Right. All right. But I want to come back to the fact. You're not going to distract me.
I'm not.
It would be like the New York Times here saying, we're gonna cover Trump, but only in the arts and leisure section. So
what? So you'd read the arts and leisure section?
No, not for political news. You don't. The political news. He is the front runner among the Republicans.
He's the front runner, but that is, that's a joke. You know that there are, 60% of voters would never consider voting for him. He's a front runner with 26%. You're not going to win an election with 26%.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. He's lead over the nearest guy, who is Scott Walker. That's significant.
We're looking at a petri dish of primary voters, and Donald Trump's support is the biggest amoeba. It's tiny, and it won't matter.
By the way, you know where else you're wrong? Okay, there are 16 so far. If Jim Gilmore jumps in, that'll be 17. You could win Iowa with 26%. You could win New Hampshire. Well, you got that many candidates.
And did the person who won Iowa last year, is that the president of the United States?
They didn't have that many. No, but they didn't have that many candidates. But I'm saying, you said you can't win with 26%. This year you can. This year you can.
Okay, you could win a state or two, but he's not going to win the Republican nomination. And the Huffington Post is a little more clear-eyed about that than some of our competitors.
The Huffington Post, with all due respect to you and to Ariana, you are letting your editorial judgment influence your responsibility as journalists. I don't give a rat's ass about Donald Trump, but I do think you can't decide that he's just a joke and therefore not cover him on the news page.
I think the Bill Press Show's listeners should keep in mind that we continue to cover Donald Trump. It's just here's the difference.
Which is an editorial statement.
Here's the difference.
That's an editorial statement.
And here's how it actually looks to the consumer of Huffington Post news. Stories on the politics page in blue letters at the top, it says politics. Stories on the entertainment page in red letters, it says entertainment.
Right.
The same story in there.
Let me tell you, you know what? I think Bobby Jindal should be on the entertainment page. Seriously. I think Mike Huckabee should be on the entertainment page.
I think it's part of the issue, right? Is like, so what? Where do you stop with that, right? Because I think there are a lot of people who aren't serious candidates.
Basically, I think all of them should be on the entertainment. They're all clowns, a bunch of clowns.
Bill, that's irresponsible.
All right. Are you doing any other serious work these days?
What do you mean?
How about the?
What are you talking about?
Well, before we leave Trump, do you think the polls now are exaggerated? People are just responding to it.
Oh, all right. Well,
controversy, or, I mean, is there something here? Is he really exposing, if you will, kind of where Republican voters really are today?
He does expose where they are in this moment. I just think people forget how fleeting this moment will be. In the big poll that has him, crushing Scott Walker and Jeb Bush that just came out, that everyone's talking about, wow, Donald Trump's support in the wake of his comments about John McCain is higher than ever. But as has been explained, the poll was conducted over 3 days, and only on the third day had this McCain stuff come out, which has precipitated finally the Trump pile-on we'd been expecting. And in that last day, his support craters. So this war hero stuff may seriously be the end for now.
Right. I doubt that it will. By the way, I think
the end for now of Trump front runner.
But I mean, I think Trump supporters just see that as being that's why we like him.
I think there's a low ceiling on Trump's support in these primaries.
I spent some time in South Carolina recently, and I talked to a couple of people who were actually very vocal about why they love Donald Trump. And they said it's because he is a straight talker, a straight shooter. He'll say whatever is on his mind, and he's not a polished politician type, which I think this type of talk feeds right into. I think this is exactly what people...
Really working for Donald Trump right now.
Last thing on this point, we will tweet out to you, or the link, whatever, to my column in The Hill today, where my column is about Donald Trump, where Trump is right, making the point, as I did yesterday, that John McCain is a fair target, just like anybody else in politics. He's not sacred, and also, Republicans had no problem attacking a war hero in 2004 when they slimed John Kerry. But now, when Donald Trump dares criticize John McCain, suddenly, he's got to be thrown out of the party. Anyway, Arthur, I want to talk to you about the Highway Trust Fund bill. Important, substantive stuff when we come back.
Entertaining.
Yeah, what page is that on? Join the fun at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go now, 13 minutes before the top of the hour on this Tuesday, July 21. Igor Volsky joins us from Think Progress at the top of the next hour. And yes, those of you watching on Free Speech TV or on Talker TV, that is the Cuban flag you see over my left shoulder here in celebration of the opening of the Cuban embassy here in Washington and the American embassy in Havana, both yesterday. Arthur Delaney with us from Huffington Post, HuffingtonPost.com. And Arthur, in terms of American business, this has lots of promise, this normalization of relations. Lots of opportunities.
Well, you are the Bill Press Show's Cuba correspondent. You know a lot more about it than I.
Yeah. But I mean, without even having been there, you can see the possibilities in terms of this is the largest island in the Caribbean and basically totally open, undeveloped, and the most beautiful as far as I'm concerned.
It's a place people want to go.
Yeah. And what they will need when they get there? Hotels, restaurants, rental cars, surfboards, I mean, you name it, right? Sports shirts, the whole deal. I mean, and food for the Cuban people as well as for the tourists who go there. So I think the business opportunities are, as I say, unlimited. The other thing they need, cell phones at work, internet connections, broadband connections, communication network, the whole thing. I mean, I'm just thinking ferry service, plane service. I mean,
you've got a lot of ideas. You're going into business.
I was just going to say maybe.
I think he wants to be the ambassador to Cuba.
No,
he's lobbying pretty hard for that.
I want either Barbara Lee or Sam Farr, the members of Congress, to be the ambassadors to Cuba. But anyhow, so that's why the Chamber of Commerce has been the number one organization supporting lifting the embargo, like forever, no matter what these Republicans in Congress say, that this may be anti-business. The business community have been they are totally supportive of lifting the embargo. Are we going to see a bipartisan highway trust fund bill this year? You've been covering this.
Well, there was in the House of Representatives a Republican bill just to get through 5 months,
which the White House has supported, but still, it's a...
Well, you've got to have something.
Yeah.
But in the Senate, Mitch McConnell is apparently working on a much more substantive, presumably bipartisan bill that would last for 6 years. And while they've been working on it, we're beginning to hear some grumbling from outside groups about what are they going to do to make it deficit neutral? What things are they going to cut to pay for the $100 billion that they need so that the 6-year highway bill doesn't add to the deficit. And we heard from groups that advocate for Social Security that there are a couple things in there that they don't like. This is what they've heard from Hill staffers. And one is a provision that stops people from double dipping disability insurance and unemployment insurance, which has been a boogeyman Republicans have had. It's not something a lot of people do, but still something that advocates for the disabled and for workers think should be allowed. Because if you don't give disability insurance...
How much money are we talking about?
This is in the single digits of billions. So these are tiny pieces that Republicans are looking for. And this is, since it's an idea that's been kicked around, it's just out there.
Yeah.
So they're just grabbing stuff that's sort of sitting on the table. But it'll be tough because it's Social Security, and it's got fierce advocacy from the community of people who rely on it. And if you're talking about kicking people off Social Security, that is a very potent lobbying topic. And so the other thing, aside from the unemployment and disability double dipping piece, is a bill that resembles something Congress had tried to do before, which is to eliminate Social Security, either disability or retirement benefits, for people who have outstanding warrants. And there's a totally tough on crime rhetoric behind this idea with Sam Johnson, the member of the House who's pushed it, soliciting comments from like 20 police chiefs saying this will help us fight crime. But they did this and kicked 200,000 people off Social Security about 10, 15 years ago. And it was kind of a disaster. And people sued, and federal courts eventually forced the Social Security Administration to pay everyone back. There was a big settlement, and it turned and it was people. It was like a guy who had a warrant outstanding from Texas, and he lived in Miami, Florida, and he had no idea about it. It was because of a check he wrote for groceries 20 years ago, and that's your fleeing felon. Or that's at least a very poor example of the kind of person who was caught up. They say, we're going to do it better this time. It won't have these same problems. It wasn't clear to me on my first reading of the draft of the standalone version of this how that would work. But anyway, so ambitious is Mitch McConnell that this is the kind of stuff, they're really trying to cobble together the money to pay for a much bigger bill. And they're reaching for these different pots that could be very... dicey for them.
Well, it's so. First, the Highway Trust Fund. It used to be 5 years at a time because, these are massive projects, right? You're talking about new bridges, new roads. You gotta think more than 5 months out or 2 months out. So it was always sort of like a 5 or 6 year cycle. It'd be good to get back to that, but it's always curious to me. There's some stuff where they say we can't do this unless it's totally paid for, right?
Yeah.
And then a war comes along and they say, well,
never mind.
Never mind. Yeah, just open up the bank and let them have whatever money they want, and we'll just add it to the debt.
Well, they got 2 weeks to do it because they're going to go on August recess, and the current funding expires in September. So it's a question, is Mitch McConnell just going to pass this and then leave and force the House to deal with it? Or will they wind up with a 5-month bill that had already passed the House? So it's an exciting Washington drama that we also cover in our entertainment section at the Huffington Post.
All right. Well, you continue to keep us entertained on that. Follow it closely. We'll talk about it next week.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right. Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
He is here. Igor Volsky from Think Progress joins us at the top of the next hour. And then a little bit later, Stephen Collinson. He's one of the senior political reporters for CNN. Will be coming along as well. So lots more coming up here in this Tuesday edition of the Bill Press Show. Should the media be talking about Donald Trump?
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Pistons fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket.
They used me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or wherever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
He's number one. No, he's not just number one. He is a double-digit lead. Donald Trump in the latest Washington Post ABC poll. Double-digit lead over Scott Walker and Jeb Bush. Oh, my God. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Welcome to the show. Tuesday, July 21, the Bill Press Show, that is. Coming to you live from Washington, D.C., there with you in every corner of this great country on your local progressive talk radio station. And always remember, radio goes with you. If you don't have a progressive station near you, download one of the apps, TuneIn app or iHeartRadio app, and then you can follow us wherever you go. You can also watch us on TV, and on many, many more of you are every day on Free Speech TV, DirecTV, and the Dish Network. Good to see you today, and we welcome you to the program with all the news that we've got to talk about today on the political front, on the Iran front, on the congressional front, what's happening at the White House, the president on the road again today over to Pittsburgh, and then back to New York again. Boy, he's having some good times in New York. And to cover it all and help us cover it all, our good friend Igor Volsky, often a guest host on the Bill Press Show, as recently as last Friday. Otherwise, a director of video and contributing editor to Think Progress in studio. Prince Igor, how are you?
Also number one.
Also
just
number
like
one?
Donald Trump, yeah.
Is that right?
Number one
in the latest
the
Think
latest
Progress
Think
poll?
Progress, yeah, Bill Press poll.
You're always number one in our book, Igor. You know that, right? And you work with the team here, so you know them well. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Yes, indeed. Hey, good morning.
Jamie Benson, here he is, ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Monty Kensler, filling in as our videographer while Cyprian Bolding skips around Paris. We hope
Paris didn't take me.
No,
Yeah,
I
he's in
wanted to go to
Paris.
Paris for a while now.
He already texted me this morning. He
Already?
showed me that he's watching. Yes.
Yeah.
He showed me a screenshot.
He's in Paris watching this?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is he, crazy?
Yeah, apparently.
When you go to Paris, we expect you to
Oh, my.
take your device and to watch the show from Paris.
Well, I can watch it anywhere.
The biggest scandal of the day, of course, and we start today our news coverage with Golfgate. Have you been talking about this on
I
Think
don't
Progress?
even know what this is. Golf?
Golfgate,
What is that?
yes, indeed. I wanted to get to the bottom of it yesterday at the briefing because Sunday the president played golf with 3 members of Congress. What's going on? It seemed to me and to other reporters in the White House that this was part of his. He's so eager to get congressional approval of this Iran deal that now he's willing to play golf with members of Congress. So I asked the question at the briefing yesterday.
Bill Press.
Josh, I'd like to go back to what Julie was asking about the golf game yesterday. I would defer to Mark Knoller, but I believe in 6.5 years, this is certainly a rare moment when he's golfed with only members of Congress. I think the only time that all 3 of his partners have been members of Congress. So are we wrong in assuming this is part of the full court press on Iran?
Did you really put in the full court press?
I did. By the way,
wow. Respect.
He did not pick up.
Okay.
He did not pick up on the play of words.
I love that you did that. That's phenomenal.
So Josh Earnest says, I'm wrong.
Well, with all due respect, yes.
You're wrong.
This is a
Now let's see if you buy
this is a golf outing that has been in the works for quite some time. I can tell you that for a number of months. This is, members of Congress aren't often in Washington D.C. over the weekend, so it took some extensive advanced planning in order to coordinate this weekend's round of golf.
I don't believe that for a second. I first of all, I hope I'm right. I hope that, so I followed up. I don't want to play it all, but I did follow up and say, so are we going to see more rounds of golf with more members of Congress and more senators to build support for this bill? And he said, no plans to do that.
I do remember reading the readouts that they did not discuss the Iran deal. They claimed that the Iran deal was not discussed, that it was just a social call game of golf.
That's totally
Which, if I decide to run for Congress, I'm going to have to learn how to play golf.
Yeah.
I realize now.
Let me tell you something else. To get their votes, he doesn't have to talk Iran.
Just a few rounds.
He takes them out to play golf.
Yeah.
So what are they going to say?
I mean, if you took me, I'd vote for anything.
What? Right, exactly. So
It's
what are they
easy.
going to say when he calls him up the day after and says, oh, by the way, yeah, I need your vote on Iran. Yeah, you got it, Mr. President. No, he should be doing that. That was the point I was trying to make. He should be doing more of that. And I'm glad he played. By the way, he played with 3 people who are good friends of our show and in here often, John Yarmouth from Kentucky, Joe Courtney from Connecticut, and Earl Permuter from Colorado. Yeah. And John Yarmouth is going to join us tomorrow. And
You'll get the readout there.
Damn right.
Find out what was
That's
there.
right.
We'll find out what they're
All
talking
right.
about.
We got it. Just getting started here this morning. And Igor Volsky and Think Progress talking this morning about Donald Trump and John McCain. We'll get right into that. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other quick stories making news. We go to Bucharest, Romania, the hometown of...
You can go to Bucharest.
Bye-bye.
We're all going together in our minds. It's the hometown of Dracula.
Oh.
Right? Well, so here's the deal. In Romania, only 1.7% of the population donate blood. And so they're trying to get more people to donate blood, which you might find interesting because
necessary.
It's where Dracula came from. So what they're doing is they're having a huge electronic dance music festival, and the only way that you can get in, donating blood. They want you to donate blood to get into the music festival.
You donate blood and then you go dance at the music festival?
Go in. Well,
That's
you don't
not
do it
safe.
the same day necessarily. You go and you donate it, and
okay.
they give you a ticket, and then you go a couple days later.
got it. Yeah.
Don't donate
Faint
blood
on the
and
dance
then
floor.
go drink and dance and things like that. But there you go. Are we alone in this universe?
If I ever need a transfusion, the first question I'm going to ask is, did this come from Budapest?
From Romania.
From Romania?
Yeah.
What dancer gave me this?
Right.
From Dracula?
Yeah. Are we alone in the universe? That is a question that famed physicist Stephen Hawking is asking. Yesterday, he put out a big new initiative. It's called Breakthrough Listen, is what the name of the program is. And he is putting out $100 million to try and find out if we are alone. They want to find extraterrestrial life. Hawking said, quote, "We believe that life arose spontaneously on Earth, so in an infinite universe, there must be other occurrences of life." End quote. So he's pulling together some big brains on the idea, pulled together $100 million. And if you can help find where there's life, you can get that money.
Has Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman and our former boss at the Center for American Progress, John Podesta, commented on that story?
I was thinking Stephen Hawking should talk to John Podesta or Dennis Kucinich.
Right, yes.
Who's actually from Mars.
That's what I hear.
So
yeah.
He could just collect that $100 million. And we're going to go to Las Vegas, where the NBA's Summer League is over, and your champions are the San Antonio Spurs. Now, this is a league where they sort of train newcomers to the team and rookies, and they get a chance to play. This is notable because, remember, the San Antonio Spurs had tapped Becky Hammon, their assistant coach, to coach the men's team in the Summer League, and she took them all the way to a win. She's the first female coach to even participate in the Summer League, and she set the bar awfully high by winning the whole damn thing. So congratulations to the Spurs.
But the point is, Peter won't find any opportunity to talk about the San Antonio Spurs.
Clearly.
We won. I mean, what do you get? How can I not mention that?
Unless they lost, then we wouldn't talk about them at all.
That's not such a big story.
Bury it.
Yes, indeed. So, question of the day, should the media even be talking about Donald Trump?
Well, certainly, the more he kind of shoots missiles at his fellow Republicans, whether they be running or not running, people like John McCain running for re-election, certainly not running for president again, it's going to become an issue because they feel like he's representing their party in some way. He is a standard bearer, I guess, with double-digit lead in the polls, 20-something%, according 24% in the latest poll, although the window of that poll only included some people for that final day when he made those comments about John McCain. So maybe this will be his Waterloo in a way. Maybe it will slip. Or maybe his supporters will blame the media, will blame John McCain, will blame establishment Republicans. That's kind of the off-ramp here because it does sound like the more things Donald Trump just says off the top of his mind, the more he insults people, the more very frank he is about the issues, the larger his base grows. That's his appeal. That's what people like about him.
I think his numbers will go up. They won't go down.
Well, Rush Limbaugh came to his defense yesterday and blamed the entire thing, the entire episode, on who he calls the drive-by media, kind of making this a big deal, and praised Trump for not backing down. That oftentimes, he argued in these cases, somebody says something wrong, the establishment tries to smack them down, and they immediately back away and say, "Oh, so sorry, didn't mean it."
Right.
And Trump here standing his ground, and that appeals to a lot of people.
There's a lot of truth in that, by the way. There is a lot of truth, and Trump has made a career off of this. If this is shocking to anyone, you just haven't been paying attention. Trump goes and he says something outlandish, and he will never, ever, ever apologize for it.
Right.
Never.
Rush Limbaugh is not the only person to defend Donald Trump. I noticed in The Hill this morning, there's on the opinion page, there's a column by Bill Press.
Bill Press?
Oh, who's that guy?
At the risk of sounding like Ted Cruz, I rise today to defend Donald Trump.
Oh, Bill.
And
Peter, did you know about this?
I had no idea.
But the point I make is the same point that you make on Think Progress, which is back in 2004, Republicans were very eager to slime a war hero by the name of John Kerry. Today, when Donald Trump dares question John McCain's war heroship, if you will, then suddenly, oh no, this is taboo. You can't do this. You can never attack a war hero. Right?
Well, I think generally speaking, people's war records should be off limits in presidential or electoral politics. We don't need to go and argue whether or not if you're captured, you're a hero, or you're shot, you're a hero. Let's just leave that off the table.
I totally agree with it. But if you do it, you can't complain when they do it to you.
Well, that's right. We all remember the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth in 2004 going after John Kerry, claiming that he faked his injuries, that he shot himself or was shot in some other way.
Yeah, but nobody of any stature would
And
agree
it was
with
all
that, right?
proved, well, you'd think, right? It was kind of adopted by the Republican Party, warm hugs all around, even though they didn't directly endorse these guys. They were a big part of the campaign of Bush's re-elect, and their big funder, a guy by the name of Bob Perry, who poured $4.4 million into the Truth Boat Swifters, if you will, gave a whole lot of money to today's Republican frontrunners. He gave, $1,000 to Jeb Bush, $4,000 to Rick Santorum, $6,000 to Lindsey Graham, $15,000 to Bobby Jindal, $2.8 million to Rick Perry, he's from Texas, and $37,000 to Ted Cruz. Bob Perry died in 2013, but his business, Perry Homes, which made him very rich, spread a lot of that wealth around to today's field, and they're not returning those dollars anytime soon, even though Bob Perry did to John Kerry what Donald Trump is trying to do to John McCain.
And as you point out again, the Think Progress lead story, and one of the lead stories in Think Progress this morning is that the hypocrisy of the Republicans, which is really the story told in one letter.
In one letter.
One letter from?
Then Governor Jeb Bush wrote a letter to George Day, who was a member of the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth, praising him for taking Kerry down a few notches. This was a formal letter on Florida's stationery, his gubernatorial stationery. He's certainly not taken any of that back. While they're right to criticize Donald Trump, and they all did very swiftly, and again, let's remember, it wasn't the comments about immigrants that led them to this kind of change of heart about Donald.
No, it was okay for him to call them criminals and rapists and everything else.
Yes.
But when he attacked a white man...
Well...
Yeah, right. I was just looking at Jeb Bush's letter here. As you say, it's on official governor letterhead.
Yeah.
The governor of the state of Florida, and how proud he is of them to the risk of standing up for something I simply cannot express in words. How much I value their willingness to stand up against John Kerry.
Even
stand up against him, tell lies about
tell lies against him, question his patriotism, question his Americanism, question his service. Jeb Bush didn't serve, did he? I don't think he did.
I'm blanking. I don't know.
I don't think he did.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I mean, I think out of this field that we have now, I think Lindsey Graham is probably the only one who served. Is my loose, or Rick Perry did as well, right, Peter? I think he did.
He did.
I think he did.
Lindsey Graham, who was endorsed yesterday, by the way, by John McCain.
Shock.
Oh, I didn't see that, really. Was he?
Shocker.
Oh, well, good for him.
Didn't he once call him his adopted son, Lindsey Graham? So, he sort of has to.
Here's John McCain.
Lindsey Graham served his active duty in Iraq or Afghanistan. That's serving his country in uniform. He understands these issues better than anybody that I know, and I think he's fully qualified to be Commander-in-Chief.
There you go.
Well, there we go.
Well,
the golden endorsement. Take that to the White House, Lindsey.
Yeah, and the field gets a little more crowded today with John Kasich, governor of Ohio, jumping in, candidate number 16. Igor Volsky here with us from Think Progress, thinkprogress.org. The question, Igor, we'll get into when we come back, is whether John Kasich will even make the first Republican debate.
In Ohio.
In his home
state.
In
his home state. Ooh.
Right back with the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains into the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At 26 minutes after the hour, Stephen Collinson used to cover the White House for Agence France Presse. He now is a senior reporter for CNN Politics. He'll be here in studio with us at the half hour. Igor Volsky here with us now. Igor, a quick comment from Jason in Washington about Donald Trump. Hi, Jason. Jason. Hello, Jason. All right. Okay. Let's just move right along here. John Kasich, Igor, jumps in today. What happened?
Number 17, Ohio Governor John Kasich, who was, of course, the chairman of the House Budget Committee. He ran for president briefly in 2000 and is very well liked in his state. Relatively well liked in his state. And his angle here on the race, I think, is this kind of straight talker, ordinary guy in the mold of John McCain from 2000, and somebody who's not afraid on some issues to take on his party, specifically Medicaid expansion, which he adopted in Ohio. He's going to take some hits in this Republican primary, but argues that it's the responsibility of government to take care of those who have the least. And he's made that argument on national television, on Fox News, got a lot of pushback, and said, you know what, I have to make sure that when I make my decisions, my conscience is clean. I'm not going to do it for politics. I'm going to do what I think is right. And on that issue, he's really led the way.
He has. So today, there's less than 2 weeks, right, before the first debate, or whatever, just about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's August the 6th. Can he get up enough steam to get on that stage in his home state?
That's the big question. Right now, he doesn't have the poll numbers. Can he produce a boost from this announcement and get himself where he needs to be in the top 10 to qualify? We'll have to find out.
It'd be embarrassing if
it
not.
would be. Cleveland, Ohio, August 6th.
August 6th.
Mark your calendars.
We'll be there. Igor Volsky, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada! What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry. Hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania. Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water. Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, what do you say 33 minutes after the hour on a Tuesday, July 21. Here we go, The Bill Press Show here with you on your local progressive talk radio station, coast to coast. We're also looking at you on Free Speech TV. If you've got a satellite dish, you'll find us, of course, on DirecTV or the Dish Network. And worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TalkerTV, TAWKRTV. And for those of you watching on television, yes, that is what you think it is over my left shoulder. That's the Cuban flag today. We are celebrating the opening of the Cuban embassy here in Washington, D.C. Yesterday, and the American embassy down in Havana, no longer the American interest section. It's right there on the Malecon, a beautiful spot. In the Varadero section of Havana, and John Kerry will be going down a little bit later this summer to raise the American flag there at the new American embassy. I'm surprised that Stephen Collinson was not down in Havana yesterday. Good friend, used to cover the White House for Agence France Presse, and now at CNN as their senior political reporter, joining us in studio. Stephen, it's good to see you, man.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Do you miss the White House?
People used to tell me when they left the White House or when they were a staffer that they couldn't imagine leaving, and they think it would be a terrible thing to do. But once you've left, it's like a great thing to have done. You miss certain parts of it, the history, the trips. The president's going to Africa this week, for example. I'd love to be on that trip.
You would have been on that trip. I would have been on that trip.
Right. But, the stress of covering the White House, the hours, the feeling that you're always missing something, someone else has got something that you don't really miss that. And I actually think since I left the White House, I had a little bit more perspective on covering the president. And I've written some sort of long-form pieces about his presidency, which I don't think I would have been able to write had I been sitting there, churning out wire copy every day. So I think it's a great thing to have done, and it gives you perspective when you leave. I perhaps would like to go back there one day and start, asking questions of presidents again. That's the real fun.
Yeah.
But for now, it's interesting to be on the outside a bit. You still talk to people on the inside. You still go down there sometimes, but you're not there 24 hours a day like you were before.
Right. And if you were there covering foreign affairs, which is sort of was your specialty then, Cuba would have been on the list, right?
Right. Cuba,
a big
huge
deal.
And if you think about it, we're talking about 50 years of U.S. policy that the president basically wiped away with a sweep of the pen.
Mm-hmm.
It was the kind of thing that he said he was elected to do. I mean, that was audacious. It's something that's very controversial, opposed on Capitol Hill. But, like you said, we don't want to get trapped in the past. And I think from the president's perspective and those around him, ending the impasse with Cuba is one of the items of big change that he believes that he was elected to do back in 2008.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a legacy item. The Iran deal, the trade deal, the Cuban opening up Cuba, and there'll be more. And there's it's already booked that John Kerry is going this summer. I believe Barack Obama's going sometime in 2016.
Right,
probably in December 2016.
Right, exactly. After the election, let Hillary Clinton not have to deal with that issue. But it's very difficult for all the opposition, and many of the Republican candidates are on the record as saying they would turn this back on basically day one of the presidency. It's very difficult to see anyone taking that step in reality once they're elected president. So it's something that what's going to be very interesting for me to see is what happens when the Castro brothers die. If Cuba then moves towards a more market-oriented, democratic, open society, I think President Obama will be vindicated.
Mm-hmm.
If not, he will basically have to answer some questions in history about whether he gave up U.S. leverage too soon.
I think you're right, but I don't think there's any way that Cuba goes backwards. I think they have to move forward. You're right, to see if some other president might try to reverse that. Several of the Republican candidates for president have said they will, on day one, however, reverse the Iran nuclear deal. Scott Walker and Jeb Bush right now are sort of in a little tiff between the two of them as to which one would do it first, sooner, right? How do you read the Iran nuclear? Is it here to stay, and any chance that the Republicans in Congress can scuttle it?
On the issue of the presidential candidates, first of all, I think it's completely inconscionable that a Republican president on day one of his presidency would rip up this deal. They may be opposed to it. They may not believe it's actually going to work. They believe that Iran will probably cheat. But look at the consequences if you give up a deal that's accepted by the rest of the world. So on the day one of a Republican's presidency, he's alienated every single U.S. ally. He's caused a huge row with China and Russia, which he may see as adversaries, but he doesn't necessarily want to get on the wrong side of on day one. Look at the consequences in the Middle East. So if the deal is torn up, what's Iran going to do? Iran's going to race ahead enriching uranium.
Right.
It's going to say, well, you cheated on us. There's nothing to stop us now from going ahead and developing a nuclear bomb.
So they'll have a bomb within a couple of years.
Right. So, it's the kind of thing a Republican candidate probably has to say, and it will cause some delicate dancing on the head of a pin once one of them is elected. But it just seems impossible to me to think that an American Republican president would tear it up on day one, because it would end up consuming his presidency before it had even started.
Right. In fact, Scott Walker said, I will rip it up on day one, and I will convince our allies to support that, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just impossible. That the idea, and this is one of the, we get to the issue in Congress, this is one of the questions where people are saying, okay, it's a bad deal, the president could have got better. Okay, possibly he could, but that's done now. The question is now, if Congress were to knock this back, what would happen? And we'd be seeing the same effects. And President Obama's critics have balked at the way he said, okay, either it's this deal or war. But eventually, I think that's a pretty fair position. I mean, the idea that suddenly the U.S. could go back and say, okay, now we're going back to sanctions because we don't like this deal. I mean, it's not practical in a global diplomatic sense. There's no way the Russians and the Chinese are going to impose new sanctions. I don't think there's any way, in fact, some of the European powers would impose new sanctions on Iran. There would just be no support for that. So, we are where we are, and I think that might start to weigh on the votes of some of these Democrats who are against the deal. The question is, what happens if we scupper it now instead of is it a good deal or a bad deal?
I must tell you, when we talked about it here on the program, at the news conference last week, and I was there. You would have been there. You're still obviously in your previous post. It was, to me, it was like taking a master class in the Iran nuclear deal with Professor Barack Obama.
Right.
And he went through every one of the arguments that have been raised against it.
Right.
And I thought very effectively shot every one of them down.
Right.
I mean, and I was at a little dinner party with friends Saturday night, and someone at the table, this is Washington, D.C. dinner party, right? Someone wouldn't happen anywhere else on the planet. And someone asked the question, now, what are the legitimate arguments against the Iranian deal? Substantive, legitimate arguments. And it's hard to come up with one.
Right. I mean, I think objectively, you could say it's a bad deal that the U.S. gave up too much. The administration wanted to deal too much, right? You could make that argument. You could say there should have been more inspections, less enrichment, fewer centrifuges. But at the end of the day, you have to get the deal you think you can get. I don't think the administration went into it saying, okay, we want all these things, but you give something and you take something away. But in sort of, from my perspective, everyone used to say, well, a bad deal is worse than no deal. But that's not exactly the case when you look at the consequences if there is no deal. Iran races ahead to a nuclear bomb, and then an American president has to take the decision, do I use military action? And it would be hugely disruptive in the Middle East, which is already a mess. It would basically commit the U.S. to pretty much a perpetual shooting war against Iran. It may only sort of stall the nuclear program for 3 months, whereas this deal is supposed to keep it under wraps for 10 months. I mean, I think we're going to see Iran push every single limit as far as it can. That's the nature of these things. The test will be in whether this verification regime works.
Right.
I don't think we're going to know whether this deal is going to work for probably 10 years. And I think a lot of it relies on reformists in Iran, so-called reformists like President Rouhani and Zarif still being able to maintain power in what is basically a theocratic state. So, there are huge questions about this deal, and I think people are right to raise them. My perspective is it's just better than all the alternatives. I mean, it's not a great deal, but what would happen if there wasn't a deal would be a lot worse. And sometimes politics is about punting difficult decisions down the road until circumstances change and you can perhaps come up with a more lasting solution.
I think what gets lost sometimes in all the talk about the deal is the fact that we were able to bring Iran to the table in the first place, right? I mean, that in itself is huge. And, of course, thanks to the sanctions, I think, but at least there were negotiated talks, which actually started under George W. Bush, fell apart, then Barack Obama restarted them. So we get them to the table, and we are able to make a deal where they, again, there are all that monitoring, even installing all of that sophisticated electronic monitoring equipment, all that, how they're going to get that done, all those questions, but still the basis, the substance of the deal is for 10 years, they're not going to be building or moving toward building a nuclear weapon.
Right.
Those two things are pretty significant, huge.
I mean, that's just that fact there ought to be enough to sway some Democrat that's wondering about whether should I vote this, or am I going to get sort of torched in my re-elect or whatever. I think that if you look at the history of U.S.-Iran relations of the last since the '79 revolution, there have been certain moments when there was a possibility for at least the Cold War between the U.S. and Tehran to sort of heat up slightly. It happened during the Clinton administration. There was an attempt by President Clinton to open a channel. I think it was President Hatami then at that point. After September 11th, there was a kind of convergence of interests between the Bush administration in Iran and Afghanistan. And even when the U.S. invaded Iraq, there was a short moment before the insurgency started when Iran was concerned about U.S. power in the region. Then, of course, it fueled the insurgency itself. Was basically its militias responsible for the deaths of many U.S. servicemen in that war, and that's one of the reasons why President Obama's outreach is so important. But I think this goes back to one of the first sort of principles of Obama's 2008 campaign. Remember when he said he used that Kennedy line? We should be afraid to negotiate with our enemies or whatever. Butchering the quote, but he basically stood up in that debate and said. And he was asked whether you would negotiate with the leaders of Cuba or Iran or North Korea, and he said, yes, I would. And he was, pilloried by Hillary Clinton, ironically, as it turned out. One of the many ironies of the Clinton-Obama relationship. But it's central to the premise of his presidency, and he himself said it was a risk. He said to Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic, 10 years' time, if Iran has a bomb, my name's on it. So he knows the gambles here.
Stephen Collinson with us from CNN, senior political reporter. Stephen's also, let's talk about strange places. He's been spending a lot of time in Iowa and New Hampshire. Let's switch to that when we come back here. You want to jump in at 866-55-PRESS? We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Hi, this is Bernie Sanders. I just want to congratulate Bill Press for 10 years of great radio. Bill, the progressive community needs your voice, and thank you so much for all that you're doing. Take care.
Okay, hey Bernie, how you doing? It is. We thank Senator Sanders for that little 10th anniversary salute.
Congratulations, Bill.
Yeah. Stephen Collinson in studio with us from CNN. Stephen, you've been out in Iowa and New Hampshire a lot for CNN. What do you think about this Bernie phenomenon? And on the ground in Iowa and New Hampshire, how's he doing?
He's doing pretty well. He's getting big crowds. I was up in Vermont for his launch a few months ago.
You were,
Funny
yeah.
enough, just listening to Senator Sanders there, I actually went to interview his brother in England. I was
Really?
over in England covering the election in May, and Bernie Sanders' brother was running for Parliament as this Bernie Sanders candidate for the Green Party
What?
in Oxford.
His real brother?
His real brother, who's
No
a few years
kidding.
older than him. He was basically he moved to the UK in the late 60s. Worked as a social work
had no
professor,
idea.
and
Whoa.
you could. My story is up on online. You can get it, and we did
At CNN?
Yeah, CNN.
Oh.
So we did a text piece, and we did a on-camera interview with Bernie Sanders' brother. And he calls him Bernard, and he still has this kind of slight American accent, but he's kind
does
of.
he sound like Bernie, like he's from Brooklyn?
You can hear it, but it's like he's taking on the more sort of mellifluous tones of an Oxford resident. He lives in not far from the university in a nice sort of terraced house. He's an absolutely lovely man. And he talked about when Bernie was young, how he got into politics. He talked about their childhood. And at one point we said, what do you think, and he sort of moved to tears. It was like one of those 60 Minutes moment we talked about how proud his parents would be of Bernie Sanders. So it's Bernard. Check it out. It's really, he was a lovely man. He says he's going to come over here and join the campaign at some point. But he was like a classic, all the issues, he was the same as Bernie Sanders. He was basically, on the left. He had no chance of winning the election. He's about 82, I think he is now, and he was still running for parliament. No, he lost.
He lost. Okay.
He was, the Greens are a peripheral party.
Does Bernie have a ground operation to match the crowds?
That's the question, especially in a place like Iowa, where you basically have got to get your people out on a snowy caucus night in February. I guess it's going to be 2016. That's the question. To all sort of intents and purposes, he doesn't seem to have the same kind of operation as Hillary Clinton, who's been quietly laying down, especially in Iowa. She remembers the humiliation last time of losing Iowa, and how the Obama campaign basically out-organized her, not just in Iowa, but across the country in terms of delegate hunting. So I don't think Bernie Sanders has that kind of organization yet. What he does have, he may be able to translate enthusiasm, especially among students in places like Ames, where Iowa State University is, the other big college towns. One of the advantages he's going to have is that, the caucus is going to be a bit later this year. In 2008, I think it was like January the 4th or something.
Yes.
And one of the big questions was, will all the students come back from Chicago and wherever else they were and caucus for Obama?
Right.
Middle of February, they're all going to be in place, so it's going to be easier to organize them. So, you've covered politics for a long time, and that the idea that someone's got big crowds equates to big support is always misleading. So I would sort of take a lot of it with a bit of a pinch of salt. But there's no doubt that he's clearly emerged. He's coalesced that sort of anti-Hillary, Elizabeth Warren block of the party. It doesn't seem like the other three candidates in the race, Jim Webb, Lincoln Chafee and Martin O'Malley are making much impression right now. So if you don't like Hillary Clinton, and there's a lot of people, it's interesting. You go to Iowa.
I'm going to have to stop you because we're just up against the clock and out of time. But, we just got started on all this stuff I'd love to talk to you about. But we'll have to get you back again soon.
Okay.
Steven,
excellent.
so good to see you again. Thank you so much for coming
Thanks for having me.
Follow all of his good work at cnn.com. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Two hours, not enough, never enough. We always need that hour number 3, which you will find on Free Speech TV at 5 p.m. Eastern, a little delay, 4 Central, 2 Pacific, of course. But you can watch us right away on our video stream, Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker TV. Jump over there for Jessica Taylor from NPR, covers politics for NPR. And then Peter Kornbluh from The Nation magazine was at the opening of the Cuban embassy yesterday. He'll be here to tell us all about it. Maybe we'll have a mojito with Peter. We'll see you in hour number 3 coming up.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves, would you like a bag? What do people really hate? Yep. Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Learn more at ready.gov/alerts. Brought to you by FEMA.
This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama, busy schedule today. He goes out to Pittsburgh this morning to address the convention of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I bet he has something to say about Donald Trump and John McCain. Then he'll be going on to New York City, where he is taping an appearance on The Daily Show tonight with Jon Stewart. Little present going away present for Jon Stewart. He'll be back, and he does a little fundraiser while he's in New York. Then he will be heading back to Washington, arriving back at the White House tonight about 9 o'clock. Josh Earnest will be gagging with reporters on Air Force One.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money and judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Number one, not only number one, Donald Trump is in double-digit lead over Jeb Bush and Scott Walker in the latest Wash Post ABC poll. Hello, everybody. It's got to make a lot of establishment Republicans nervous. Good to see you today. It's Tuesday, July 21. Here we are on the Bill Press Show at our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., but with you everywhere in this great land of ours on your local progressive talk station, radio station, on Free Speech TV and worldwide on Talker TV. Thank you for joining us. Good to be with you on radio in Radioland and also on Free Speech TV. We welcome you to the program, and you're going to find out everything that's happening today in the country or in Washington, D.C., around the globe, and then you tell us what it all means to you at 866-55-PRESS. Take a particular look here in the first half hour at the political front. Jessica Taylor, a good friend of ours for a while, and now has moved over to NPR, where she's the lead digital reporter. And Jessica joins us in studio this morning. Welcome back.
Thanks, Bill. Good to be here.
You're enjoying things at NPR?
Love it. It's wonderful. Tune in every day. Great public radio station.
Welcome to this wonderful world of radio.
Yes,
come on in,
radio's
the water's fine.
It's great. Yeah, I love it.
Indeed. You know our team members here, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
All right. Jamie Benson, he's on the phones, ready for you at 866-55-PRESS. And Monty Kensler is here as our videographer while Cyprian Volding enjoys a little vacation in Paris. And then we're all jealous about that.
Yeah.
But at least Cyprian's on the job watching us from Paris. Make sure everything goes well.
He is watching. He already sent me a text of his screen of where he's watching the show today.
I don't know. All 3 hours?
I told him yesterday, Sip, you could take a day off, dude.
Yeah, right.
You're in Paris. You don't have to watch the show. We won't hold it against you.
Right. Over my shoulder, you will see, those of you watching on television, the Cuban flag. That's because we are celebrating the opening of the Cuban embassy here in Washington yesterday and the American embassy down in Havana. Peter Kornbluh from Nation Magazine, who was there at the opening of the embassy here in Washington yesterday, will be in studio with us at the half hour to tell us all about it. And we'll cover the political front with Jessica Taylor here in the first half hour. But first.
This
What
is
do you
the
got?
Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Speaking of Cuba, we found out that BWI is going to start their nonstop service to Havana beginning September 30th. We found that out yesterday because we knew that this was going to start, rolling out.
What airline?
BWI.
No.
What airline?
No.
It's
From BWI.
Yeah, from
Yeah,
BWI.
Southwest? No,
And
not Southwest.
No, not Southwest.
I know JetBlue is doing it. I don't know when they launch.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll find out exactly who it
Okay.
is. But they say the round trip flight's going to cost about $775.
From BWI.
BWI to Havana, round trip.
Always BWI.
I know, right? It would be BWI. Ugh.
You know what? It's a great airport. It's easy to get to, and I use it all the time.
It's not that easy to get to.
Not as easy as DCA. Yeah.
Not as easy as National.
Yeah. It is a good airport, but yeah.
It's just, I live in Virginia, so it's kind of far from
Yesterday on Reddit, a McDonald's manager had an AMA where people could go on and ask that person anything. AMA, ask me anything. So someone asked about the existence of a secret menu at McDonald's because it's been rumored for a while that they have a secret menu, and the manager confirmed, yes, indeed, we do have a secret menu. So some of the things that you can get are the chicken McGriddle at breakfast, because they have the McGriddle sandwiches normally with like a bacon, egg, and cheese, or sausage, egg, and cheese. You can get it with chicken. They have a Big McChicken, which is a chicken sandwich that, instead of a double cheeseburger, it's a double chicken burger. They also have the Land, Sea, and Air Burger, which is a cheeseburger with a chicken patty and a fillet of fish, all between two buns. The Land, Sea,
Well, how do you know about this?
Air Burger. Well, it's just like rumors have been passed around for a while that this is the secret menu.
But can you order it?
Well, that's what they said. That's what I'm saying. They have acknowledged at McDonald's that you can order these things.
But if you walk in, they don't tell you that
They don't advertise it.
got
You
it.
can order it, but you can order it.
Do you want to write those down, Bill?
Yeah,
just so you
next
remember
time you go to
them.
McDonald's.
Land, air, and sea.
No.
That sounds nasty.
Yeah, I know.
Doesn't that sound gross?
It does. Gross. No, I'm happy with Five Guys.
Yeah, there you go. And August 30th is the MTV Video Music Awards. The nominations will be announced today, but late last night we found out who the host was going to be. Miley Cyrus announcing on Twitter with a picture of her holding a sign that says, "So I'm hosting this year's VMAs," and her tweet just says, F yeah, VMAs, August 30th at 9 p.m. So Miley Cyrus will be the host. And I'm sure she's figuring out what outrageous things she can do to get herself more attention on the show.
All right.
Again, I'm sure you'll be tuned in for that.
I'll let you do that. That's your job, not mine. All right. So, Jessica, this is a wild scene today. We start with the fact that as if we didn't have enough Republican candidates, we got another one today. John Kasich.
Ohio Governor John Kasich, by our count, he is the 16th to officially declare. We make sort of a distinction. We've had Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore, who, if you blinked, you missed it. He said he is running, has not officially declared, however.
That's right. He didn't have the huge crowd.
Right, exactly. I don't think he would get a huge...
Or didn't file his papers.
Yeah, I don't think he'd get a huge crowd anyway. But yeah, so John Kasich getting in, he's the last major candidate we're expecting to get in. And he has an uphill battle. I mean, he likes to, one of the things he's trying to sort of preach and try to sell to voters is his electability, he thinks. He's been elected twice, and Ohio, a sort of swing state, and he points out that no Republican has ever won the White House without winning Ohio. So that's sort of his big sell is, if you, I can play in this state, I have these roots and stuff too. And as I've been doing research on him, he's actually a very interesting guy. So, I mean, he was the youngest state senator ever elected in Ohio, went on to be elected to Congress at age 30, served for 9 terms, and rose to be the House budget chairman. So he was budget chairman sort of during the 90s, trying to, push a balanced budget amendment and cutting budgets and stuff too. Didn't make a run for president in 2000. Easily forgotten because he was only in for 5 months, announced in February of 99, dropped out in July of 99, and endorsed George W. Bush. After that, he kind of took a break. He went and worked in the private sector, most notably at Lehman Brothers, which his opponents and Democrats especially will be eager to use against him given their collapse and the controversy over that during the financial crisis, and then was elected governor in 2010 in the Republican wave and stuff, and was reelected last year very easily against a very damaged Democratic nominee. Yes, but he's had a long career in politics, has always sort of eyed a political career. If you go to our website on NPR, I have 5 things you should know about John Kasich today, and probably my favorite is that when he was a student at Ohio State, his very first week of class, he was riled up about something, about some regulation and stuff too, kept calling the school president until he got a meeting with him, goes in, finds out that the school president at Ohio State University is going to actually go see President Nixon at the time about something. He says, well, can I come along? And of course the school president, already perturbed that this college freshman is invading his time, says, well, no, of course you can't come along. This is crazy. And he says, well, would you give him a letter for me? I just have some concerns as a college student. And he says, well, okay, I'll give him a letter. So he gives him a letter. At the end, he says, P.S. if you ever want an opinion of a college student or something, I have plenty of time. I'm happy to come talk to you. The gall of this in a way that he would do this, but it worked. Nixon,
yeah, right.
Nixon, he got a letter 2 weeks back from the White House inviting him to come. He was supposed to have a 5-minute meeting with Nixon. It turned into 20 minutes where they talked, and it was actually December 1970, the very same week that infamous Nixon photo with Elvis Presley happened.
Oh, yeah.
So, and he has
one of the greatest photos of all time.
It's true. But, and we'll have John Kasich up there with Nixon later, and not as great, but you do see a very 70s looking John Kasich. But he's a different type of Republican, which could play well in the general election, but isn't so great for him in the primary. He expanded Medicaid in the state, which is sort of heretical to a lot of conservatives. But his argument is that, he uses it almost like as a social justice way of his faith. He said, when he passed this 2 years ago, he said, when I get to the pearly gates of St. Peter, he's not going to ask me how many tax cuts I instituted. He's going to ask me, what did I do for the poor? So he kind of takes this very interesting approach, and he's been sort of ridiculed by even some other members of his party for this, but he really sort of stands by this. Another very interesting thing about him that I learned is that he was he actually wrote a book about his faith. I was just when he was speaking at the Faith and Freedom Coalition last month, I was there and was really struck. I mean, he doesn't sort of get, sort of Ted Cruz kind of has that pastor aura about him, or Rick Santorum talking about his faith, but it was just a very genuine way. I was almost taken aback just kind of sitting there listening. He talks about he was raised Catholic, in the blue collar suburbs of Pittsburgh, actually came from a Democratic Union family, and sort of fell out of his faith in college, as a lot of people happen to do, and really sort of wasn't very serious about it. But then in 1987, his parents were killed in a car accident. Both of them were, and it really sort of caused him to reevaluate his life and sort of have this search for faith. And he sort of went through this 20-year sort of faith journey, meeting with a Bible study group, and you can see a lot that his faith sort of informs what he does, whether it's on Medicaid reform, on immigration, on even education and stuff too. And these are things that sort of place him more toward the middle of the Republican Party, but he's trying to use sort of his faith to justify them. So we'll see if it sort of works in this Republican primary.
He is a different kind of candidate. I think he has a lot broader appeal than many of I agree with you, than several of the others who are running. But the big question is, to me, a practical one for John Kasich. He's getting in very late. It's 16 days until the first Republican debate, which is being held in his home state, in Cleveland. And right now, he would not be on stage.
He would not, and that's a problem for him. If he'd have announced earlier, maybe he could have gotten some, support and things too. Sort of, you pick somebody off the street, they don't know who John Kasich is. That's his problem. And he's more likely than not, unless he has a huge surge, which is unlikely, especially as he's getting overshadowed even by Donald Trump right now, his announcement, and that he's not going to make it. So I think that's his problem. He's got to get this exposure. He's got to sort of somehow drum this up. He's not going to do probably pretty well in Iowa, but he needs to do well in New Hampshire. He's sort of like, I kind of look at the primary as like a 2-bracket thing. You have sort of the conservatives that really need to do well in Iowa to get a ticket out, and you have the more sort of centrist candidates like him, Lindsey Graham, people like that need to really do well in New Hampshire, and that's where he's got to do. And he's not polling very well there either. So it's nationally and in the states he needs to do well. It's just hard to see a path right now.
I was looking at Mike Allen's playbook on Politico, which we all read every morning, where Steve Shepard, a good friend of ours, since we know Steve,
former colleague of mine,
he ranks for likely to be in the debate. Okay, let's see if we agree with him. That they would include Trump, Jeb Bush, Walker, and then In fourth place, either Huckabee, Rand, or Rubio. Now, depending on who makes it, then the others move down.
I'm surprised Huckabee's so high on that.
So that's sort of like 4, 5, 6 he's got. 7, Carson, Ted Cruz, Christie, and Perry. He says Christie and Perry could drop off. Santorum and Kasich might move up.
Yeah.
But definitely off the list for now are Santorum, Kasich, Jindal, Carley, Lindsey Graham, George Pataki, and James Gilmore.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem.
That sounds about right, don't you
Yeah,
think?
it is, but I mean, there's a lot of hand-wringing in national Republican circles because you're not going to have Carly Fiorina on the debate stage.
Yeah.
They would really like to have a woman up there. She's proved to be very good at these cattle calls, has been really,
Yep.
she can attack Hillary Clinton and sort of take that on in a way that other men really kind of have to tiptoe about and really do blowback and stuff too. And, I mean, these have even changed because we've had 2 polls that have come out in the past day. I looked at them yesterday, actually, and we didn't have Perry on there. Santorum actually jumped ahead of him. So, it's kind of fluctuating a couple of weeks, and it will as more polls come out. And that brings me to another point that I have another story up on NPR right now, too, pointing out that, with Trump getting all of this attention over his comments, seemingly blasting John McCain for his war service and things like that, that, there's sort of this hand-wringing of, veterans are a very big part of the Republican coalition and trying to shore those up. And you only have 2 veterans right now in the GOP primary. You have Rick Perry, who was in the Air Force, and Lindsey Graham, who, of course, just retired as a JAG officer with the Air Force. And there's a real possibility that neither of them make it on stage right now. You said Perry, he's sort of on the bubble. If you look at it like the NCAA tournament, he's definitely like the bubble team right now. Yesterday he was out, today he's in. And, yeah, if John Kasich maybe gets some, support and kind of jumps up there, he could even leapfrog him, Santorum, and him keep going back and forth. But, it really looks like unlikely that Lindsey Graham would get on there. So I think a lot of Republicans I talked to, they're like, we need one of them on this stage and stuff too. And Perry was actually probably the most forceful coming out after Trump's comments on Saturday. His was actually the first statement that I got sort of blasting him. And, he went further than any other candidate, calling for him to step out of the race and stuff too. So he feels like he sort of has that perch where he can attack Trump on this and sort of hold him accountable because he does have this military service.
Right. And also at the when they get down to, I mean, maybe first top 2 or 3 or 4, it's going to be pretty clear. But then so many of them are within like 1 digit, 2 digits, right? I mean, it's going to be hard to distinguish. Basically, I mean, they're all sort of, there's so many of them, 5 or 6 or more, who are all tied around 1 or 2%, right?
I was talking
so
with
how do you distinguish among those?
Right. And it becomes very dicey, and almost people feel like, very sort of, not very based in, maybe statistics or things. So you have a lot. I was talking with a pollster yesterday, and she told me that, whoever sat down and developed these debate criteria did not talk to pollsters, because you have different pollsters using different methodology. You have, like you said, you have them within margin of error. So who says that, a candidate with 2.4 is going to get in the race, but a candidate with 2.3 isn't? Maybe it should be based on fundraising strength, or, how many, endorsements, or how much ground game they've got, or stuff too. And then you have people very frustrated that they're using national polls to determine this when, candidates aren't spending a lot of their money nationally. They're spending it in Iowa. They're spending it in New Hampshire. They're spending it in these early states. So I think that's why you see Trump jumping to the head of the pack nationally. And, the latest poll does show him in second place in Iowa. But I think other places that's going to wait. And that's what Republicans really believe is going to happen, that this is sort of like, that this is his ceiling, that he's going to drop down and stuff too. I mean, think back 4 years ago, he was leading polls again then. He, of course, hadn't officially gotten in. But they really think that, the Trump bubble is going to burst. And we saw the beginning of this.
I think they should put all of them on stage. That's the only answer. I want to see the whole clown car unload. 23 minutes after the hour, Jessica Taylor from NPR, NPR.com. Of course, we'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here,
but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Oh, Jessica Taylor here from NPR. And Jessica, I didn't realize we are just about out of time. So I want to ask you this. If you had to guess right now, who are the nominees going to be?
Oh, gosh. I don't like questions like that. I will say I was actually in South Carolina last week with Scott Walker. I was very impressed. He has a very good stump speech. He was getting a lot of, good reaction and stuff on the trail. So he's one I would watch. I wouldn't discount Marco Rubio. Jeb Bush, has a great team. He has all the sort of building blocks there, but whether he can overcome his name too. So those are sort of three I would put right now to sort of watch and things right now.
One of the three of them against Bernie Sanders, right?
I think it's probably going to be Hillary. That's the one
Hey, congratulations on the new job.
Thank you.
And thanks for keeping close to us, and we'll see you back here soon.
Yeah, of course. Thanks.
All right. We'll be back, Peter Kornbluh, and we'll talk Cuba.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania. Fracking pollutes our oceans. Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go at 33 minutes after the hour. How about it? The Bill Press Show, Tuesday, July 21, on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide and also coast to coast on Free Speech TV worldwide on our video stream, Talker TV. Which means right now, those of you watching on television are either here in this country or maybe even down in Havana or other parts of Cuba will see over my left shoulder the Cuban flag. We are celebrating the opening of the Cuban embassy here in Washington, D.C. yesterday and the American embassy in Havana, Peter Kornbluh. From The Nation magazine, author of the great new book, Back Channel to Cuba, The Hidden History of Negotiations Between Washington and Havana, joins us in studio yesterday. He was there of the embassy yesterday. Hello, Peter.
It's nice to see you, Bill. We were in Havana.
I haven't seen you since you were making mojitos in Havana. We were together on the Nation magazine trip in Havana in May. It was a wonderful trip. You've heard me talk all about it. Peter was our leader and our guide, and yesterday was a huge historic day.
It was a day that
Tell us about being at the embassy. What was it like?
Well, everybody understood that it was a historic. Everybody was almost giddy about being there, really. And it was an extension of being in Cuba. An embassy is technically the territory of another state, and it was hot, and there was a long line.
Just like being in Cuba?
Just like being in Cuba. But in the end, the wait was worth it. And
raising the flag must have been...
the flag went up. There was an honor guard. They played the Cuban national anthem. A delegation from the U.S. State Department and the White House was there. The foreign minister of Cuba gave a very interesting speech a little bit later after the flag went up. But, the flag went up. It went up slowly. It started blowing in the winds. And you could just feel it was blowing in the winds of change. The winds of change of U.S. policy, of U.S.-Cuban relations. And this is a day, yesterday, July 20th, that I think many people will remember. It's going to go down in history with the opening to Vietnam, the opening to China, a significant change from aggression to cooperation, from estrangement to engagement. I think this is going to be a really important legacy for Barack Obama.
You told us when we were in Cuba, I remember maybe at our first session, that November 17 will be sort of and you were in Cuba that day, will be kind of a national holiday in Cuba.
December 17th.
December,
right.
I'm sorry, right. December, yeah.
In Cuba, they call that 17D. It sounds like an apartment number, but it's really? 17D is the kind of short acronym for December 17, 2014, when President Raul Castro and President Barack Obama simultaneously but separately went on their respective national televisions and announced that they were seeking to renew diplomatic relations and bury the hatchet of the hostile past. And sure, that's going to be a day in history as well. But this is what they said would happen: that we would arrive at the reopening of diplomatic relations.
Sooner than I thought, by the way.
And you know what? Every day brings some new change to interaction between the United States and Cuba. A few weeks ago, it was the Carnival ship line got permission from the Obama administration to start ferrying passengers like you and me doing kind of people-to-people diplomacy to Cuba. We can't vacation yet until we convince our Congress that we should be allowed to freely travel to Cuba. We can't go on a Carnival cruise line to sit on the beach, but we can go to kind of explore Cuba, learn about Cuba for purposeful educational travel. The ferry services, which were so famous in the 1940s and 1950s before the revolution, from Key West,
and Miami.
Those are all starting up again.
Peter did a story a little bit earlier about the flights now from BWI starting up.
Kicking up in September,
In September.
Right.
So we won't have to go like we did to Tampa, right?
That wasn't so bad.
It wasn't so bad, no, but I mean, just up the road.
Yes, we'll be able to go from Baltimore. There's going to be weekly flights from JFK. JetBlue will, I think, become the first commercial airliner to simply have regular flights to Havana and other parts of Cuba. I mean, it's going to be happening so fast that it's almost mind-boggling. And soon people are going to be saying, particularly younger people, what was the issue with Cuba to begin with? What was the issue with this beautiful Caribbean island?
I think a lot of them are already. We know a lot of them are already saying that.
Yeah.
Generationally, this issue.
It's over and done with. Yeah. I mean, for the next generation, it's not even an issue.
Now your book. I mean, the timing on your book was incredible. Your book came out, Back Channel to Cuba. We talked about it. I mean, it was like just about the week, right, or a couple of weeks before the president made his announcement.
Well, it came out October 1st, and the president made his announcement on December 17th, but it was a decent interval, as they say.
Yeah, and you were in Cuba promoting your book when the president made his announcement, right? I mean,
many people thought that somehow I and my co-author, William Leogrand, knew that Barack Obama had been secretly engaging in his own back channel, and we were in Cuba, knowing that this guy Alan Gross would be released that day, and the 3 Cuban spies would come back that day, and all of U.S.-Cuban relations would change forever. And that's not exactly the way it was, but I'm glad that people think that. But what the real issue is that since then we have gone out and reported on what Barack Obama secretly did. And we have a new edition of the book coming out in just a few weeks. It's going to be excerpted in Mother Jones Magazine in the September issue that hits the stands at the end of August, where we have a new epilogue that tells the secret story of how Obama actually secretly negotiated through secret meetings in Canada, at the Vatican with the Pope, using intermediaries, going back and forth to Cuba, carrying messages to arrive at July 20th, the normalization of diplomatic relations. It's really a compelling, fantastic story.
It's a phenomenal book. I've read Back Channel to Cuba. I can't wait to read this extra, the paperback edition with this extra chapter.
Absolutely.
So what role, and we'll have a link up on our website too, Peter, for
Absolutely.
Sure that back Channel to Cuba, and have you back in when the paperback comes out. What role did the Pope play?
Everybody wanted the Pope to bless the deal, as it were, and a number of people, including Senator Patrick Leahy, who was instrumental in working behind the scenes, even though he didn't know the details of what Obama was secretly doing. He was pushing for a change in policy.
He was there yesterday,
He was there yesterday. I was standing with him and his top aide, Tim Reeser, who is really the unsung hero of a lot of this work. And is going to receive the Washington Office on Latin America Human Rights Award for his work on Cuba in October. Yeah, but Senator Flake was there, Senator Leahy was there, but it was Senator Richard Durbin who actually in September of 2013, I'm giving you a little preview of the Mother Jones article in the new book, kind of said in a meeting at the White House, said, what would happen if the Pope kind of stepped in and said, you should, improve relations with Cuba and swap these prisoners, Alan Gross for the 3 spies. Wouldn't you then be able to, he was basically passing a message to the president, wouldn't you then be able to say to Robert Menendez, the now embattled, Democrat who was then chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and completely opposes any deal with the Cubans, wouldn't you be able to say to him that the Pope asked me to do it? That's what Durbin's idea was. And Leahy's office followed up on this, and so, of course, did the White House in the end. They saw the great wisdom of having the Pope involved. So, and the Pope got involved. We tell the story of all the secret back channel messages and letters and how they got here and how complicated it was, and his meeting in Rome with the President of the United States where they discussed the Cuban issue. And he played, I think, a key role and will continue to play a key role. John Kerry is going to go to Cuba on August 14th.
Oh, is that it?
Right.
I was going to ask you if there's a date. There is August 14th.
But then in September, the
24. Oh, no, 23rd, I guess. Huh?
The Pope is going to Havana and to other parts of Cuba, and then he's come to the United States. And, of course, there'll be worldwide attention to what he says, and he will certainly, at that point, I think, really officially bless the normalization of relations, and I think maybe even call or hint at the need to lift the trade embargo. And this, of course, will have kind of a godlike impact, I think, on the debate.
Right. I just tweeted out a photo to all of our followers of Peter Kornbluh, our guest, making mojitos. We took a little how to make mojito class in Havana at a wonderful little restaurant, rooftop restaurant.
You were the best student, Bill, in that class.
Well, I was a student, but you were the master.
I think you drank the mojito. I think you drank the mojito that I made.
No,
I remember handing it to you.
But one of the great things about the trip was that every meal we had, there was always a welcome drink. And the welcome drink was usually a mojito, even at noon. Now, yesterday, I want to know.
11 a.m. in the morning, they were serving mojitos at the Hemingway Bar in the Cuban embassy.
That's what I want to hear.
Peter, we've seen him drink martinis at 8:30 in the morning, so this is nothing for him.
I could have handled a mojito at 11 o'clock. Yeah, it was either mojito or Cuba Libre at lunch, and then at dinner, of course. Yeah.
I can tell you, most people were drinking water because it was so hot yesterday. But there were mojitos if you wanted one. If you really had a stellar constitution, you could have a mojito.
Well, Peter makes a mean mojito, I have to tell you. I want to talk more about Pope when we come back, because our first stop in Havana right from the airport to the Plaza de la Revolucion, right? Isn't it what this called?
Yes.
Where the Pope will celebrate Mass when he's in.
He will, with more than 1 million people probably.
Wow. All right. Cuba is the topic of the day here, and celebration of the day with the opening of the Cuban embassy here in Washington. Peter Kornbluh was there from The Nation and author of Back Channel to Cuba. We'll be right back. Join us if you want, 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Hi, this is House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi. Bill, congratulations for 10 years of communicating progressive activism on the Bill Press Show. Best wishes for much continued success.
Nice for a real progressive.
Hey, how about it, Nancy Pelosi there. Thank you, Madam Leader, for the good words. Well, we may be celebrating our 10th anniversary here at 12 minutes before the top of the hour, but The Nation magazine is celebrating its 150th anniversary.
We're almost there.
Yeah, that's right. We got ways to go. And they've got a big party coming up in Washington. It's on my calendar.
I don't think I've been invited.
What? And Peter Kornbluh was there yesterday, I think, with the publisher, Katrina
Absolutely, yes.
yesterday.
Katrina was there. We were there together.
Opening of the Cuban embassy here in Washington, D.C. Peter, who led the trip of The Nation magazine that I went on in May, we had learned a lot and had a lot of fun. Great trip. And the two more trips this year by The Nation, end of September and then early November, both of which are already booked.
Apparently, they're full of wonderful people like you.
Charles Bittner told me yesterday, but there will be more in 2016. And I've told
two
everybody,
more scheduled in 2016
is that right?
already.
Yeah.
Yes,
I've told everybody
January and April.
There are lots of different people leading groups, but you couldn't do better than go with the Nation magazine. Peter, one of the things that we talked about when we were there, I want to get your take on it again. Is I think Americans are worried, right? That you got to get to Cuba like right now because once Americans get down there, we're going to destroy it. I mean, is Cuba ready to and able to hold its own, if you will? And
you know, that issue came up on the trip that you and I were on again
Many
and again
times.
and again. And you yourself made the astute comment while we were there that people in the group were rushing to Cuba to get there before we ruined it. And you know, there's something a little bit kind of ethnocentric about that observation because you know, the Italians have been going to Cuba.
Yes.
The Canadians who have business interests have been going to Cuba in droves. You know, more than 1.1 million Canadians vacation and travel to Cuba every year and have been traveling to Cuba. It's that we're at the end of the line, us U.S. citizens, you know, of the rest of the world has been going to Cuba, and the rest of the world who are capitalist have been, you know, and spending their money and vacationing and doing all those things, and their companies are there. And Cuba is still Cuba. And Cuba will no more kind of take direction from us on how they should handle the influx of U.S. citizens and U.S. businesses than they would, you know, a year ago when we didn't have normal relations. And the whole issue of lifting the embargo and changing the relation wasn't even on the table. They will make decisions about what's in their best interests, and you know, whether they want to let a McDonald's in or a Walmart in. They understand that they have a very different situation environmentally, having a much more pristine environment with less cars, less chemicals, less fertilizers, and they're going to try and kind of balance the economic needs they have as they work towards developing their economy with hopefully with the cooperation of U.S. companies to the concerns that they themselves have about having an environmentally friendly public health, positive public health situation, and the good things that they feel their people need.
what happens when the Castro brothers die?
Well, Fidel's quite old now. In fact, I think his 88th birthday is coming up in August. And Raul is 84, turning 85, and he has pledged to step aside when his term ends.
What do we know about the new guy? Or do we know who the new guy would be?
Well, yes, he has what's called a first vice president, Miguel Diaz-Canal. And a number of U.S. officials and senators and delegations that have been flowing to Cuba since December 17th have met with Diaz-Canal. They don't meet with Raul Castro, and they understand that he is the designated leader. Now, there's also the Cuban Army, which Raul was defense minister of, led for many years before he officially became president. And, of course, they'll maintain a very high-level role, I believe, in Cuba's future. They're very invested, however, in the tourism industry and the changes that are happening with the United States. I should point out that Raul's son, Alejandro Castro, de Espín, is also a major in the Cuban Interior Ministry. So I would guess he will play a role in the future as well. But the Castros are going to be gone, and U.S.-Cuban relations will have changed. We still have to deal with the history that continues to resonate between our two countries. And even yesterday, the Foreign Minister, Bruno Rodriguez, here in Washington, repeatedly pointed out that there's still the issue of the Guantanamo naval base.
Yeah.
There's still the issue of the trade embargo, which only
embargoes.
Congress can lift.
Reparations.
There's still the issue of reparations. But, well, he didn't point that out. Of course, we are demanding reparations. But you know, now these talks about these issues are going to take place under a different framework. And that's what's so important about what happened yesterday.
Now, the best recommendation you gave us in Cuba was the restaurant where we had the lobster. What's the name of it? Do you remember?
It was I forget. It was one of the seaside restaurant, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the Miramar.
Vista del Mar, was it?
I think it's Vista del Mar. You're right. Yeah. Peter said it was the best lobster he had ever had, and I must tell you, it's Best lobster I ever had, too. It was
sautéed in butter and garlic and butterflied and almost like
I know.
It was,
Oh, man.
And,
with a little onion.
And match that with a mojito and you're in heaven.
And you listen to the pounding of the sea up against the restaurant's literally on the water, and there's this seawall right there.
Yeah.
And the waves come smashing against the wall, and they pour over the wall into the swimming pool that's between you and the and the water. And so it's a wonderful place to eat. I'm glad you ate there.
While you're eating your lobster.
How
amazing.
That's beautiful.
So the book, again, Peter's a co-author with William Leogrand, right?
Yes.
It's Back Channel to Cuba. A paperback comes out early October. It'll be, you can read it, though, in excerpt from it, in Mother Jones in September. The additional backstory, back channel to Cuba. Peter, thinks so much for coming. Congratulations.
Thank you, Bill. All right. We'll see you in Cuba.
Soon again. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
All right, that kind of wraps it up for the day. Not even time for a parting shot today. We're so busy talking about Cuba, but it is really, really good news and historic news. Good for President Obama, the president who opened up relations with Cuba after 50 years of handling it the wrong way, and the opening of the two embassies here in Washington and in Havana yesterday. So now, folks, your job, go out and have a great, great Tuesday. And then one more job, come back and see us again tomorrow morning. We'll be here, and we'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.